Hey everyone, welcome back. So today I'm going to talk about something that is not the happiest of actually it's not a happy topic at all, especially for someone like me, but I want to just kind of give information that I know and maybe answer some FAQs I've seen on Facebook or Twitter or things like that. And this is going to be all about the southern resident killer whales. And for those of you who don't know, the southern resident killer whales are a distinct population of whales that live in the Pacific Northwest, and they are particularly around the San Juan Islands, which is off of the coast of Washington State. Now, I've been to the San Juan Islands 3 times now, and each time I've seen both residents and transients. And for those of you who don't know, transient whales, they live in the same area, but they do not breed with or interact with the residents. And the difference between the transient and the resident whales is that the resident whales eat fish, and the transient whales will eat fish along with other marine mammals like seals and porpoise and things like that. So it has come to a lot of people's attention that the southern resident killer whales are in big trouble. And the thing that really set it off was when J35, who I don't know how to pronounce her name, I think it's Taliqua or something like that. I'll put everything in the description box below. But a couple months ago, or maybe even more recent than that, she had a calf. And so like I said, her name and number is J35, which means she's from J-pod. There's 3 pods in the southern resident killer whales, J, K, and L pod. And if anyone has watched my Lolita video, which I will also put down below, you will know that Lolita is actually from L pod, and I will talk a little bit more on that later. But a lot of attention came to this population when J35 gave birth to a calf, which was a female, and the calf died after only a couple days. She carried around her dead calf's body, just pushed it around on her nose for over 2 weeks, almost 3 weeks. And that is a behavior of mourning that whales and other dolphins will do, and that just further gives us evidence that they're very emotional beings, very social with each other, very family oriented, and that got a lot of people's attention. So along with the death of J35's calf comes J50. Now J50, her name is Scarlett. She is about 4 years old. She was born in 2014, and she has been looking very emaciated. She has what's called peanut head, which if you look from an aerial view, you'll see that her head, it kind of indents right where you think like their temples would be. It indents, and it gives the shape of a peanut, which is why it's called peanut head. And that happens when the whales are not getting enough to eat. The fat deposits will break down, and their skin will sink in like that, and that is not good, and it usually means that that whale is not going to make it. Now, I do need to put a disclaimer out there that I am not a scientist. I almost have a degree in biology, but this is just from things I've read, things I've kept up with for years and years now, things I've talked to experts about personally, as well as just seen them talk about it in interviews or anything like that. So this is just what I personally know to be true, and just different facts that I want to share. So the first question I want to kind of answer is, why are they going extinct? And that is the true reality. They are going extinct. They only have about 30 breeding individuals. So the number one reason that they are having problems and ultimately going extinct is because they are not getting enough food. So southern residents mainly eat Chinook salmon. That's really a cultural thing. So when the 2 groups of whales split, the transients learned from their upper generations to continue to hunt marine mammals, and the residents just continued to hunt fish. So the Chinook salmon population in the Pacific Northwest has declined greatly over the years, and they are a keystone species in that environment. And what a keystone species means is that if something happens to that species, to their populations, then the whole entire ecosystem is affected. And the Chinook salmon is the main food source for the southern resident killer whales. So because they aren't getting enough food, they're basically dying of starvation. And that also goes into reproduction, because the reason that J35's calf did not survive over more than a couple of days is because there just wasn't enough food to sustain her, or maybe there wasn't enough food for her mother to nurse her. So bottom line, there's just not enough food. Another reason why that their reproduction is compromised is just from all the contaminants in the water. PCB levels are really high. If you take a sample of an animal from the water and you do like a toxicology report on it, you'll see that the animals themselves are very toxic. And since killer whales are on top of the food chain, the level of toxicity goes up the higher you go up the food chain. So the fish that they are eating have these chemicals in their bodies, and the percentage of that chemical, or like I should say the intensity of the chemicals and pollutants that are in the fish's bodies heightens when the killer whales eat them. So that's another reason. It messes with their hormone levels, with their endocrine system, and they're just not, their bodies aren't able to reproduce efficiently. So the next FAQ that I saw is, before I go on to the next one, obviously there is also another reason that started decades and decades ago about why this population is not where it used to be or where it should be. So we all know that SeaWorld did wild captures from this population back in the 1960s and 70s, and they took, I'm not sure exactly how many individuals they took from this population, but they took individuals, and in the process of taking individuals, other ones died. The ones that weren't captured actually died from either getting tangled in the nets, or from stress, or getting hit by the boat, or whatever reason that it was. So the wild captures that took place from SeaWorld and whoever else also plays a big part in that, because they were captured as young whales which weren't able to reproduce yet. But if you would have left them, would they be able to have reproduce, and how many whales would that have given this population? Probably not, honestly, just because of the whole salmon thing. So, but that did decrease the population at that time too. So killer whales are very socially driven, and they're very culturally driven. And like I mentioned earlier, because this population of whales learned to feed primarily on the Chinook salmon or king salmon, they've learned that ever since they were born. So they're not going to just automatically switch to a different food source, or automatically switch to eating marine mammals, because that's just not how they operate as a species. They go with what they learn from their mothers when they're born. The next FAQ I'm going to address is, why is the Chinook population so low? What is happening to the fish themselves? Well, there's a couple factors, but one is bigger than most. The main reason why the Chinook salmon population is so low is because of the lower Snake River dams. So these dams are not allowing the salmon to get back into the ocean, and I will put all kinds of resources about the dams below, but I do want to just keep it very simple, just so anyone is able to comprehend and understand what these dams are doing. So the dams are basically blocking the salmon from getting from the freshwater back to saltwater. Basically, they're salmon killers. I mean, they They also have like economic issues going on with them as well. Some argue that they're still economically sufficient when they're really not. But like I said, I will leave all kinds of resources below if you want to read in more on that. Other factors obviously include, you know, overfishing, pollution, salmon farms, and things like that. So there's really a lot of factors going into why the salmon population is so low. So now I want to transition to how these problems can be addressed, both by government agencies and you as an individual, because there are things that you can do that will contribute to helping this problem. So the number one thing that needs to happen for not only just the southern resident killer whales, but for this whole entire amazing ecosystem, the dams are breached and the salmon populations are restored. The theory is that the whales will have enough food, they'll get healthier, hopefully they'll be able to start reproducing, and the entire ecosystem will kind of come back to life. And that is the main point of what a keystone species is for an ecosystem. Everything will rely on the health of this species. So when salmon populations are low, whale populations are going to be low. So if you restore one, you can restore the other. Another thing is, for the dams to be breached, the governor of Washington has to be on board. What you can do is you can call his office, ask his office to breach the 4 lower Snake River dams to restore the Chinook salmon population and therefore restore the southern resident killer whale population over time. And basically just save the whales. The whales need salmon. So that's something that you can do. I have called almost every single day for weeks now, and they do take tallies. They take tallies on your calls, and they will, you know, it's bringing attention to them. And I know that the governor's Orca task force has acknowledged it, and it's definitely on the table, but it just needs to be done very quickly because these whales can't survive very much longer if these dams aren't breached. So I think that covers just the main things that I wanted to talk about. I just wanted to get information out there because I know it's a popular topic right now, at least in like the animal conservation biology world. So if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to comment down below, and I will try to answer it to the best of my ability or lead you into a direction that you can find information to answer your question. And I think that's about it. So thank you for watching, and I will see you soon. Bye.